Hello, I'm Tom Wilkinson, and welcome to today's episode of Thinking in English. On today's episode of Conversations with Thinking in English, I'm incredibly happy to welcome my good friend Marie onto the podcast. Marie is originally from France and runs the Feminist Majo blog, which posts fascinating articles about the lives of women in East Asia. Marie also has a master's degree in Asian politics from the same university that I graduated from, and has studied a lot of languages in her life. So join us for a conversation on feminism, women in East Asia, and how to develop your language skills to be able to study at a top English language university. I've made a full transcript of today's episode, which took me a long time. So I hope you go over to the Thinking in English blog and check it out. And I've also made a vocabulary list. However, it will be at the end of today's episode. But if you go to the blog, you'll be able to find it right now. And please check out my Instagram page as well, Thinking in English Podcast. So, without any further ado, let's get into the episode. So, Marie, how are you?
Doing great, thank you. And you?
Thank you. I'm okay. Thank you for joining me on the Thinking in English podcast. So you're my second guest. So it's a big honor to have you on. And I wanted someone who is not a native English speaker, but speaks English to a very high level. And I also wanted someone who could, I guess, give us an introduction to a new topic that my listeners have not heard me talk about. And I've talked a little bit about feminism, but not too much. So can you give us a brief introduction to who you are and how we know each other?
Okay, so my name is Marie. I'm from France. I've been studying political sciences in France and in the UK for my master's degree, where I met you. We were in the same degree and in all the same classes, I guess.
Yeah, all the same classes. You were actually the first person I met during our master's
degree. Very true.
I think we were friends on Facebook before we started.
Yes, that's true. And I lived in Japan twice. The first time was when I was a bachelor student for an exchange semester. And the second time was after graduating for my master's. I did a working holiday visa in Japan for 8 months-ish. And due to COVID-19, I had to came back to France.
And it's a familiar story to me as well. I left Taiwan because of COVID-19. So,
and right now I'm working in a high school as what we call assistant, education assistant. It's kind of a weird title for a job, but I'm working with students. I'm not a teacher though, and I also work with the student council on gender equality and sex education, and we are like together putting a big awareness week on sex education and gender equality upcoming in May.
Excellent. So aside from doing your day job, you also run a blog, the Feminist Majo. So can you tell me a little bit about your blog?
Okay, so basically, after I lived in Japan, I kind of have a lot of trouble to find a job, and still is the case though. And I was very encouraged by my dissertation supervisor to undertake a PhD in gender politics, and I kind of started writing a PhD proposal, and that was in the continuity of my dissertation topic that was on abortion politics in Taiwan and Japan. But because of COVID and isolation, I kind of had a depression phase, and I struggled a lot. So it was kind of hard to motivate myself to work on that PhD project. And also, not to mention the super high tuition fees due to Brexit. I was like, yeah, something I'm not ready to undertake like a PhD right now, although I'm very passionate about reading, writing, and also Asian feminisms. So I thought, like, why not creating a blog? That's something I can do. It's not too much pressure on me, and I can just like, write and discover more stuff that I like. So that's how it came.
Excellent.
I was like, yeah, I want to write. I want to learn more about that topic, and don't put too much pressure on me. So how should I do that? Just creating a blog.
Yeah, perfect. And some of your articles have been really interesting. But my listeners, not all of them speak Japanese. I think maybe about 6% of my audience is Japanese. So what does the word, or what does feminist majo mean? Can you tell me what it means?
Yeah, so basically majo is witch in Japanese. It means a witch. And I love the figure of the witch, and the whole psyche that is around it really fascinating me. Basically the figure of Kiki, so Majo no Takkyubin, so the Kiki, the delivery witch, from Miyazaki.
The delivery
Miyazaki.
Service?
Yeah, delivery service. Yeah. Basically rocked my childhood. Seeing her, this little witch, this little woman emancipating herself in the big city was kind of a dream to me. But actually, I also read, it's a French essay wrote by Mona Chollet, which is a Swiss journalist. It's called Sorcières, la puissance invaincue des femmes, which means like witches and the wonderful, like the powerful women's, where she actually take the figure of the witch in the Middle Age and the witch hunt, and how that today, the figure of the witch, which is basically three kinds of women, so independent women, women with no kids, and also old women, still is something that is not really accepted by the society. So that's why I was like, okay, I need to find a kind of a title for my blog, and which basically surrounded myself in terms of like childhood figures, and also like who are women, and women who wants to emancipate themselves are basically seen as kind of witches.
So can you maybe tell us a few of the different projects and articles that you've written about?
So I have written an article on music and a rap artist in Japan. It's called Awish. That was the first very small article I put on the blog because I had to start with something. She's a woman from Okinawa, and she went through a lot. And she recently like released an album called Queendom. So she's like openly feminist, and also she supports the Black Lives Matter movement because her late husband was African American and was shot dead, and she has a half African American and half Japanese little girl. So she's very engaged with society's issues, and tried to like put forward these issues within her music, and she sings in Japanese. So actually it might have some impacts in her own country.
Right.
And yeah.
I've also seen lots of sort of Instagram collaborations and I guess projects on your blog in the last few weeks with a DJ from Paris and some other DJs throughout Asia. So can you tell us, what are you doing in this project?
So this project is so basically I have one of my best friends is a DJ, and she really knows about the entire electronic culture, from techno to trance music or drum and bass. And actually, Northeast Asia has a lot of female DJs, and some of them are super famous. You might have heard of Peggy Goo or Yeji in South Korea, and they're probably like more famous than some like idols group, at least on the international scene. And they also they're very engaged as women, trying to like fit in this kind of male-dominated world that is entertainment and electronic music scene. So we decided that we were going to take like 3 separate parts. So South Korea, Japan, and then more like a Taiwan, Hong Kong, and China, like mainland China parts, and trying to analyze and discover some female DJs that are like changing the standards of the entertainment world.
So I guess moving on to more of a discussion about feminism. To you, what is feminism? Because it's a very complicated topic with lots of different theories and different different schools of what feminism is, from the radical feminism to Marxist feminism to post-colonial feminism to liberal feminism. So to you, to Marie, what is feminism?
Well, for me, feminism is intersectional. So it's a term that was first defined by Kimberly Crenshaw in the 1989. So to quote her, say we tend to talk about race inequality as separate from inequality based on gender, class, sexuality, or immigrant status. What's often missing is how some people are subject to all of these, and the experience is not just the sum of its parts. So any kind of discrimination, whether it's based on gender, race, age, class, socio-economical status, physical or mental ability, gender and sexual identity or religion, and ethnic interplays all together. And feminism tends to maybe correct this discrimination. It means to tend towards more equality and equity, maybe regardless of any of the above mentioned so-called category.
So just quickly to interject, so equality and equity are two similar but quite different concepts in, I guess, in feminism, but also in all parts of life. So equality means everyone has the same thing, whereas equity means everyone gets what they need, I guess, basically. So equity is a really important topic, and I think most people around the world believe in equality, but equity, a lot of people have problems with, because sometimes it means giving up some of your privileges, giving up some of your money sometimes, in return for helping people who are less advantaged and disadvantaged.
Yeah. And I think it also might be like an alternative political regime that the one we are living in today. So the heterosexual patriarchy that assigns us to certain roles and prives us to be our true selves, like us women, men, and non-binary person. And yeah, I will say that out loud. I'm very proud I am a feminist. And feminism, although I am biased as a white, educated, middle-class woman, and also biased by my socialization in this system, in the patriarchal world, that it will build a past that I will take until the day I die. I mean, I live for that, and I just want to be my true self in the world and not being disadvantaged just because I am a woman, and being able to something very basic, but going to a party without being afraid to be drugged or touched by someone else without my consent,
Yes.
But also like get the same wages and same salary as my male counterpart. And yeah, there's so many things just behind this feminist word. And yeah.
And I completely agree and support everything that you've said. For me, I think we need to go beyond simple laws and policies that make equality sort of enshrined in the Constitution or enshrined in public law. Instead, societal change and probably political change is necessary. And so recently, you're interested in Asia, as I am. We met studying a master's degree in Asian politics. So why are you interested in Asian feminism?
So actually, I've always been interested in Asia, because my parents, before having me, lived in China and Cambodia. So I kind of grew up surrounded by their stories of the Far East, and they were very fond of Asian cinema as well. So like Taiwanese and Chinese films were playing in my house when I was younger. So I remember watching like Eat, Drink, Men, Women, directed by Ang Lee at a young age, and I was very impressed of the three daughters in this film. And later on, the character of Chiyo or Sayuri in the Memoirs of a Geisha also had a deep impact on me. Like also women were at the center of this story told in Asia. And the same goes with the Miyazaki's animation films. Like there's always strong women. That's something that was not really depicted in Western culture when you see like Disney movies just about a princess waiting for a prince to save her. But
Yes.
in Asian film and animation, it was always like strong, independent women. And actually, something was off. I was like, there's something wrong about this. And when I saw Fear and Trembling, adapted from the Amélie Nothom's book, I felt like kind of the reality was far from this superheroine that I saw on the Asian cinema. And I wanted to dig more into the lives of women in Asia. And to be honest, I think it was when I started my research for my bachelor dissertation that I found that Asian feminism was very different from my feminism. And it has a very wonderful aspect that us in the West tend to erase. So my dissertation analyzed the post-Fukushima anti-nukes movements in the citizens' public participation in decision-making. And I found out that the premise of the anti-nukes movement in Japan were actually women's collective, or to be more precise, mothers' political groups that were marching and protesting against nuclear power plants for the purpose of their children's health. So the whole concept of motherhood is very occulted in the West, but embraced in Asian feminism. And that's maybe probably what attracted me in the first place to like becoming interested in the deeper way about Asian feminisms, I would say with S,
Right.
because there's so many feminisms, especially within Asia. And I'm interested in feminism in general. And also this attraction to Asia, I cannot hide it. And why not just combine both
Yeah.
and make something out of it?
So something I wrote a podcast on recently was the South Korean elections. I did a podcast sort of explaining sort of some of the election processes, because that's more my interest in politics, was more about the institutions and what happens in politics. I like the ideas as well. But the winner of the South Korean election is now the future President Yoon, who is a kind of, I guess I can say, a proud anti-feminist. So what are your hopes and fears for the future of feminism in Asia?
Well, that's a good question. I think I have so many hopes and fears. And the more I think about these hopes, and the less I have kind of faith in humanity in general, because it's not just happening in Asia. It can sound like really pessimistic, but recent events prove that nothing should be taken for granted. And Simone de Beauvoir, in her book, The Second Sex, phrased it perfectly. She said, never forget that it only takes one political or economic or religious crisis for women's rights to be put in jeopardy. So those rights are never to be taken for granted, and you must remain vigilant through your life. So for Asia, I have a lot of hopes for Taiwan, actually, because they legalized in 2019 the same-sex marriage, and probably gonna go like forward towards adoptions. For Japan, there's also like very interesting elements that happened earlier this year, especially about the same-sex union recognitions in Tokyo and other elements. And as well as for South Korea, actually, like in December 2020, they depenalized abortion. So there's kind of some moments that are true milestones, events that we are going forwards, but there's also like just the election of the new anti-feminist president in South Korea that just wants to suppress the gender equality and family ministry, or other elements, especially in Japan, where they are right now women are fighting to be able to have their own family name in a married couple. But yeah, I don't know. Things are going backwards a lot as well. The same for the US or in Europe as well. So we see Poland 2 years ago, and the US right now as well, with the anti-gay and anti-trans bills being discussed in parliament. So
yeah, I guess history is not a straight line from bad to good, from the past to the future. It's more of a wavy circle, I guess. in many ways.
It is.
So thank you so much for discussing feminism and your blog, the Feminist Majo. It was a really interesting discussion. But the second reason I wanted to invite you, Marie, onto Thinking in English is because you have learned English yourself, and you have learned quite a lot of languages. So can you tell us all a little bit about your language learning journey? What languages did you start with, and what languages have you studied in your life?
So my language learning journey started in primary school, and living 10 minutes away from the German border, I was taught some German songs, the color, the numbers, etc. But to be honest, I didn't really like German. I was so envious of my cousin living in Paris who were like learning English instead. And when I entered like secondary school, I chose to study both English and German. And after 2 years of learning English and German, I kind of quit German and studied Spanish instead. And until the end of my bachelor's degree, I was learning English, Spanish. And I was so fond of Asian languages, just because I told you before that my parents lived in China. I was kind of in love with the calligraphy and this all Asian languages. So I decided for my high school to live in a boarding school just to study Japanese. So I left my parents and I went like 50, 60 kilometers away to study Japanese in high school. So in high school, I was studying English, Spanish, and Japanese.
Okay.
And I managed to also study Japanese in my bachelor's degree. It was only like a 1.5 hour a week, but still it could have like maintained a level. And during my master's, I stopped learning Spanish and I focused on Japanese. And it's been 2 years almost that I'm learning Korean.
Right. So a lot of languages we mentioned there. You're a native French speaker, close to the border of Germany. You speak a bit of Spanish, and then you speak better Japanese, and you're learning Korean, which is lots of languages. Very impressive. So we studied a master's degree together, and then you were considering doing a PhD as well in the UK. How did you become confident enough in English to study a master's degree, and also you write a blog in English? How did you become confident enough to publicly write and use English?
Well, it took me quite some time and courage. So after graduating high school, I entered a bilingual program for my bachelor's degree. So like half of my courses were taught in English. So I made a significant improvements during my bachelor's. That's undeniable. But the first time I took an English proficiency test, kind of like to study in Japan, did not do that well. Well, enough to do an exchange semester in Japan, but I mean, I had like 6.5.
Which test did you take?
It was the IELTS. So test, I had like 6.5, which is like B2 level.
It's enough to go to university. In some countries,
in some countries, but not in the UK though. And then I lived in Japan, surrounded by non-French speaking people. and definitely I had to be out there and communicate with everybody. So yeah, it was definitely another step towards confidence. And I came back to France after 6 months to finish my degree, and I passed another proficiency test against again the IELTS, and the results came out to be C1, which was the level I needed to enter a master's degree in the UK. So I was very relieved.
Yeah,
because
excellent.
my first choice was to study at SOAS, what I did. So I was very happy about that. But the start of the master was really, really hard and challenging for me. Well, I was surrounded with older, more mature people who spent like times working abroad, who were like natives for some of them, like you.
Yeah. Oh, so
And
I guess to say that Marie was the youngest person in our class by 2 or 3 years, I guess. Probably 2 years.
I
So
was 20 when I
yeah,
started the
you
master.
you were 20, and almost, I guess, in our group of friends, everyone had worked after they graduated for normally for at least 1 or 2 years, or at least taken some time out. So I think I was 23 when I started, and most people were around that age or older.
So I kind of spend most of my times at the first semester like trying to catch up with everything, like module contents, and with English as well. I even took like 4 in-session classes for reading.
Right.
So but I was very stressed for my first presentation, and it was the first presentation of the class with in our Northeast Asian politics module. But the teacher was like so encouraging, so kind of like I was like relieved. And in my first essay as well, the teacher told me that to be careful with my English. So I studied more, and I spent more time proofreading. And at the end, just the effort pays off.
Definitely.
I graduated with this distinction, which is like amazing. And I know that my English is not perfect and will never be, but that's okay. I'd rather speak like several languages okay than only one perfectly. And I still make many grammar mistakes, and I don't know every words or synonyms, but so in French, my mother tongue.
I guess so. Now, like we said, you're now living in France again, back in your near your hometown. So not in a big city like Paris. How do you maintain your English, your Japanese, and keep studying Korean when you're just living and working in a French world, a French environment?
I think it differs depending on what language. So for English, reading is what kept me up with my English skills. So before going to Japan, I bought a Kindle.
Great.
And I
Excellent.
downloaded a lot of books in English, and many of them were free.
Yes, yes.
And the Kindle has this Oxford Dictionary integrating, which is amazing because when you don't know a word, you just click on it and it has like the whole dictionary definition.
Yeah,
It's not like a
I tell
translation, it's just a definition.
yeah, I tell all my students to do that. You don't even need to buy a Kindle. If you have a computer, or if you have a laptop or a tablet, or even your smartphone, you can download the Kindle app. You press the button, you just
Yeah,
tap on the word, and it tells you the
that's it.
definition of a word. And it will also allow you to underline things so you can come back later. So I really
Yeah.
recommend read it. I always tell people to read books.
So yeah, I read Little Women by Louisa May Alcott, and some like Jane Austen's book in English. And actually, I found out that so many French words were used back in the days in English.
Of course, over
So
50% of our words are
yeah, it was like basically 50% of the book was old English that I couldn't understand, and the other 50% was just French.
yeah.
But yeah, and I also like communicate a lot with my foreign friends. So speaking is just a good way to be immersed, and I call my friends a lot. So we have chats together, and then I watch many films, obviously, and I write for my blog. So it's just about like reading, like always being able to have some reading materials that can be like just on your phone. I read a lot of the Guardian's article as well, which I believe are not too difficult, but still. And yeah, everything around me is surrounded by English. And sometimes I also have actually trouble communicating with my family because I have the word in English but not in French. So Yeah, just try, and also try to, when you talk to yourself, or when you think, try to just switch the language to English, and sometimes it works.
Yeah, try
It
to
works.
think in English.
Yeah,
Maybe
just like your podcast.
like the name of my podcast. Yeah.
Japanese and Korean, it's a bit different, I guess, because I'm not that advanced compared to English. And I've been struggling with Japanese a lot because I kind of reached this, intermediate ceiling, and the gap to advance is like enormous.
Yeah, I feel your pain. I think you're going through right now what happened to me 3 years ago, where
Yeah.
I got to a level I was happy at in Japanese, and then I left the country and I didn't use it for 4 years. And now I'm trying to get back to that level. So I actually yesterday signed up to a language proficiency test. To try and I don't think I'm going to pass, but just to try and make myself study.
Yeah, that's true. So I basically talk with a language partner every week. So we have 30 minutes of French and 30 minutes of Japanese, and we have like the same level in each other's languages. That helps a lot. That's the same for Korean. I also have a language partner in Korean, and we speak once a week. I also try to study by myself for Japanese using apps, books, everything I can find online. And for Korean, I also take some classes with the Korean language school that has in my city. There's so many things online for free that we can use.
Yeah, a lot of free things. And also what you're doing is kind of what I always tell people to do, is study in lots of different ways, right? You have language exchange partners, you take classes, you read books, you use textbooks, apps on your phone, and a lot of it's free. Language exchanges tend to be free. Classes you've got to pay for, but you can get quite cheap classes online as well. So
I have in class. I'm going to a school every week for 2 hours, and I pay for the entire 220 euros because it's a like association. So it can be really cheap. Usually it's on weekends or at night. And 220 euros for an entire year. And every week you have 2 hours of Korean with a real teacher in a real class, being able to exchange with other students. I think it's quite amazing. So definitely.
There's lots of opportunities out there. But thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Marie.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, please promote yourself. Where can people find you and find your blog?
Well, you'll be able to find me on Instagram at Feminist Majo. I kind of have a link tree, so where you can find all the link towards my blog. And I hope you'll enjoy my content. It's very, I wouldn't say like childish, but it's not about something so academic and kind of easy to read. I know I still make mistakes on my article, but try to be the most understandable as possible.
Right.
And I have a lot of projects for the future as well. And I'm probably going to write some articles about the witch psyche in Northeast Asia. I'm doing research about Taiwan witches at the moment, which are very incredible and interesting. And my project with my DJ friends is also ongoing. And the next country will be Japan. So we'll be discussing electronic music and women in Japan. And we might probably going to interview someone special.
It's all very exciting, and I wish you the best of luck. So
thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, go and find Marie at the Feminist Majo. I'll put all of the links in the description of the podcast, and it will all be found on my blog as well, and probably on my Instagram page as well. So if you want to go and find Marie, find the Feminist Majo, you can. So here is today's final thought. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation with Marie from the Feminist Majo. She is an excellent example of someone who has learned and developed her language skills to be able to study, work, and succeed in an English-speaking environment. As she mentioned, she graduated with a distinction from her master's degree in the UK. And actually, our university was just ranked 15th in the world for politics last week, I think. So she's studying at a very high level using English. And hopefully, this has inspired you not only to think about feminism, which is also important, but also to keep studying and improving your English. You can find Marie at the Feminist Majo on Instagram and on the Feminist Majo blog. Both will be linked in the description. And I really encourage you to go and send her a nice message, read a few of her articles, and yeah, like a few of her Instagram posts. She always puts some interesting things out there. What are your thoughts about feminism? How is feminism viewed in your country or your culture? Do you have any hopes or fears for the future of women's rights in your country? Let me know in the comments on this blog, or the comments on Spotify, or send me a message on Instagram. I always love to hear from people. And if you would like to be a guest on Conversations with Thinking in English, just send me a message and I'll add you to the list of people, and perhaps later this year you can be appearing where Marie was today. Thank you all so much for listening. Oh, and don't stop now. The vocabulary list is coming after this. I forgot about that. But the vocabulary list will follow this little conclusion. Here is today's vocabulary list. I'll put the full written list with example sentences on the Thinking in English blog. It's a little bit too long to put in the description of the podcast today. I'm sorry. But the link is in the description, and just head over there and you can see the full list. Bachelor's degree. Bachelor's degree. Your first degree at college or university. Ish. Ish. This suffix is used to form adjectives to give the meaning of to some degree or fairly. Awareness. Awareness. Knowledge and understanding of a particular activity, subject, etc. To undertake. To undertake. To do or begin to do something, especially something that will take a long time or be difficult. Continuity. Continuity. The fact of something continuing for a long period of time without being changed or stopped. To rock. To rock. To cause feelings of shock. To emancipate. To emancipate. To give people social or political freedom and rights. Engaged. Engaged. Involved in something. Collaboration. Collaboration. The act of working with someone else for a special purpose. To dominate. To dominate. To have control over a place or person. Discrimination. Discrimination. Treating a person or group of people differently because of their skin color, sex, sexuality, etc. To interject. To interject. To say something while another person is speaking. Patriarchy. Patriarchy. A society in which the oldest male is the leader of the family, or a society controlled by men in which they use their power to their own advantages. Socialization. Socialization. The process of training people or animals to behave in a way that others in the group think is suitable. Heroine. Heroine. The main female character in a book or film, who is usually good. Take something for granted. Take something for granted. To not realize or show that you are grateful for how much you benefit from a situation or a person. vigilant, vigilant. Always being careful to notice things, especially danger. To suppress, to suppress. Prevent something from being seen or expressed. To maintain, to maintain. To continue to have or keep in existence. And again, you can find a full list in the Thinking in English blog. Thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Thinking in English podcast. Please leave a rating on Spotify or Apple or wherever you listen. If you're on Apple, write a review. That really help the podcast and help Thinking in English grow. Check out some of my other episodes. You can look through the list on the Thinking in English blog. There's lots of great content on the blog and also lots of great content on my Instagram page, Thinking in English Podcast on the Instagram. I'm trying to hit 500 followers, not 500 followers, 500 likes on Spotify, and hopefully by the end of April, close to 4,000 followers on Instagram. So hopefully you can help me achieve these goals. If you'd like to support the podcast, you can always donate. But the best way, really, is sharing with your friends, following on Spotify, making sure you listen to the whole episode, even to me speaking right now. And yeah, thank you so much. And I hope you have an excellent day.